perspective, tell me what motivated you to write your book.
There's so many unhappy people out there. It's unbelievable. And when I ask them, well, if you could change your whole life with no limitation, what would you get rid of in your life? And resoundingly, people would keep three-quarters of what they have in their life,
Right.
and they would still be happy. And so I recognized that it was really the way they were looking at their life that was the reason why they weren't happy. It wasn't.
Perspective.
Yes, it's the perspective. And so because I love phenomenology, I love the idea of creating construct by way of experience. So we all have our own unique structure and the way we filter things. That's what motivated me to write the book, The Happiness Perspective, because what makes somebody happy is going to be very unique from one person to the next. You can't just say, well, if you have this in your life, then you'll be happy, because that just the one size fits all doesn't work in the happiness arena.
It doesn't work in a lot of arenas, and that's
Yeah.
why I think it really, anything self help, I think it's about drawing that information out from within rather than just putting information out there and saying this fits, this will fix it. Well, you don't have.
The National Weather Service in Upton, New York has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for western Passaic County in northeastern New Jersey, southwestern Orange County in southeastern New York, Rockland County in southeastern New York, until 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. At 4:51 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, a severe thunderstorm was located over High Point, or near Port Jervis, moving southeast at 40 miles per hour. Hazard: 60 miles per hour wind gusts and penny-size hail. Source: radar indicated. Impact: expect damage to trees and power lines. This severe thunderstorm will be near Unionville around 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Warwick around 5:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. West Milford and Greenwood Lake around 5:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Ringwood and Sloatsburg around 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. For your protection, move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a building. Repeating, a severe thunderstorm warning has been issued until 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for the following county: Orange, New York.
When I'm writing, it makes me happy. When I'm learning something, it makes me happy. And so you can do that on a consistent basis over the course of a lot of different experiences. And so, yeah, I would say that in general, I'm a happy person, and of course, gratitude has a lot to do with it as well. My gratitude is very high for everything that happens to me, and good, bad, or indifferent, because it helps me to grow, it helps me to change, it helps me to see things differently. And so, gratitude for what's in my life, it has always been a huge piece of my happiness.
I want to talk to you a little bit about gratitude because I think that's it's a big key, as you said. But so, do you see many people that really struggle with gratitude? With just getting there. I mean, because gratitude has to come from like right here. You can't just, you can't, you can fake it at first, to try to get there, but you either are or you aren't, right?
I think it's beyond that. I think people are selectively grateful.
Okay.
So if things are going well, they're happy and they're grateful for it, right?
Mm.
But then something happens that they didn't want to happen or they didn't expect to happen, and then it takes them off center, and then they can't feel gratitude around it because they're upset about it.
But then you see people that are always kind of that even keel, and you say, how? How do they do that? with all this stuff coming at them, uh, with everything that's in their life, and they always have that smile, that inner glow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they know themselves well. I really think that self awareness is a huge key to everything. And if you know yourself, then people can't take you off balance. You don't react the same to criticism that you might if you didn't, if you know yourself. Criticism is like, well, let me consider that. Let me consider what you said. But you don't have to take it to heart and let it devastate you. So,
I mean, and it's also, happiness versus unhappiness is an energy. It's an right, and
uh-huh.
when it's an energy, when we really start to tune into the difference, we start to realize it doesn't feel good to be unhappy. That feeling, that lower vibration, doesn't necessarily feel good to us. And I've noticed in my life, uh, it doesn't feel good for me to be around people who are always unhappy. And I'm not saying somebody who's disappointed, who a friend who needs me. I'm saying
Right.
someone who won't like who is stuck in that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My book called The True Nature of Energy, Transforming Anxiety into Tranquility, talks all about that, about the energy that your mood carries with you and the effect it has on other people, not only yourself. And so the people who stay constantly in that lower level vibration, it's habitual. They're comfortable there. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not judging how they're looking at their lives or whatever, but they're they're comfortable in their discomfort. And so if you try to help them to see something in a different way, ooh, that's kind of scary, and I'm not ready for that. And so there's a readiness factor to all of this. There really is. They have to be aware of the fact that they want things to be different. If they don't want things to be different and they're okay with complaining because it gives them something to do and it gives them purpose, then so be it, right? And we can choose to be around them or not.
Or
But
we
they're
can prepare
choosing.
for that, right?
They're Yeah,
Because there
and
is,
they're choosing.
yeah, there's
I'm
a
sorry.
little bit of preparation that needs to go before mixing with somebody like that, making sure that your energy is protect. You always want to have protection, but making sure maybe it's uh, a little bit more in place, making sure that you're prepared to bring them up to your level rather than you go on down
I
to
have a whole chapter in my energy book about shielding.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, because when you're in a work environment or something like that, you don't always have a choice
right,
of whether or not you can be around somebody. There are other times when you could avoid, places that people may be lower level than other places. But uh, yeah, shielding is critical if you must be around that lower level vibration because it will drain you.
and
If you're generally vibrating up here and the other energies are down here, there's a drag factor that happens.
you 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 can see it whether you're somebody who is tuned into energy or not, just knowing how you feel when you leave them. And I say a really big example, people always speak about the joy of holidays, but everyone isn't necessarily always happy around the holidays. So
That's right.
go out to a crowded mall and see how you feel. uh, uh, did you go out on Black Friday? How did that feel when you left if you weren't shielded properly?
Right. Right. Oh, I would never do that. First of all, because I'm empathic and I pick up on everybody's stuff, I just don't put myself in that situation. I just don't do it. And online shopping can be the cure for that. Like, it could be the solution. You don't have to do it that way. For other people, the holidays are really draining because it brings up a lot of sadness, and you miss all the people who aren't sitting around the table with you, those who have passed on. and you think about them. It, and on top of that, the winter, starting at the winter solstice and forward, that's a time of withdrawal. Naturally, energetically, the universe calls us to withdraw, and that's a time to study and meditate and plan for, setting your path to the spring when things start to blossom again. You'll notice that holidays like 4th of July aren't exhausting the way Christmas is, or any of the winter holidays, because we're going counter to the energy, the natural energy that exists around that time of year, with all the parties and the activity. But in July, are you tired of 4th of July?
It's a different feeling, different energy. Yeah, yeah. So you talked a little bit about needing to be ready for happiness, really needing to be ready for change if you recognize that you're not happy. But for somebody who may have kind of staggered along in that feeling of unhappiness, maybe they call it feeling stuck. Uh, uh, is happiness possible for everyone, in your opinion?
It is if they allow it. So you can prevent it, you can resist it. And so for that kind of person, no, it's not possible because they're choosing, once again, to act against what's possible. But most change, most resistance to change happens out of fear. And so if you can overcome the fear of it and the fear of, oh no, things are going to be different in my life, what's that going to look like? I'm comfortable with the way it is because I know what to expect. And so if they're not ready to have things really be different, and it also requires them to look at themselves a lot more deeply and see, okay, what is it about me that's creating this in my life? Because we create every single thing in our life. I don't care if it's something great or if it's something not so great. We pulled it in somehow. And whether it's for a lesson that we need to learn in that moment for the things that aren't so great, or if it's the thing that we've been building toward and, thinking about and embodying and finally having it materialize and how exciting and happy that is. But no matter which direction it goes, we are creating it. We create the present and the future.
And I want to back up, and I want to talk more about creating and people's choice, because somebody could hear this and think, well, I didn't choose. No, I don't want to be unhappy. But you don't mean they woke up and said, I want to be unhappy. It's not a conscious choice that you're speaking of.
Right. Yeah, most people aren't consciously aware. So there's something called negative automatic thoughts. And this is just the dialogue that goes on in our heads over and over. We don't even recognize what's happening. And it's crazy because it can create what I call the anxiety death spiral, where you work yourself up to the point where you're completely obliterated. You're so anxious now and you're so upset and your energy is so low. But you just created that. But you didn't even realize that it was happening as it was happening. So the trick is to catch yourself, or to ask somebody close to you to have them catch you and pull you out of it.
So a happiness buddy.
A happiness buddy, I love that. Yes. Yes. I'll be yours if you be mine.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're all susceptible to it. In graduate school, one of my favorite classes ever, we did this exercise to prove this point. So he gave out index cards. The professor gave out index cards with scenarios on them, and they were random. Now we know about random, right? There's synchronicity and everything.
Right.
So I get this card, and it says you come into class unprepared for the test. Wow, that just, what do you mean I'm not prepared? Oh my God, if I'm not prepared, then I'm a loser, and I won't graduate, and then, like, it can go so far into, like, and then I won't have any clients, and they won't be able to trust me, and
And
right, and it just snowballs, and we do it to ourselves. Try it next time you start feeling agitated, and I like to use the 4-part inner guidance system to determine when that's happening. Like, so if your happiness buddy isn't in the room with you, you can figure it out for yourself. So where in your body do you start to feel it, right? Do you start to feel it in your chest? Some people, their chest gets tight. Sometimes their shoulders get heavy, right? Their stomach knots up. So as soon as that starts happening, check in with what are you thinking about? How far down the road did you get that now you're clenching your teeth and you're worrying, right? Nothing's happening on the outside.
right,
This
right.
is
Nothing has changed on the outside. It's all in here.
all in here. And then that starts affecting your emotions.
And your
And
emotions affect your outer world, and that's getting into, when we use the words, we create our existence, or we create our world. People who may not have the existence that is their ideal in the moment may take a step back and feel like they're being blamed, but it's beyond that. I find it to be very empowering to know you are in charge of your life, and you have the ability to not only you've created whatever you like in your life, and you can change whatever you don't like, and just by acknowledging it, you're starting to create the shift already. And
yeah,
the feeling that you have towards it, the feeling of dislike that you have towards any area of your life, is just your soul's way of acknowledging that you would like to have some change, or else you wouldn't be looking at it, right?
that's right. That's absolutely right. And yeah, beliefs create reality. So if you've been thinking the same way over your whole life, and it's a negative way of looking at the world, if you tend to be pessimistic, you're going to filter everything through that. Oh, well, this is good for now, but I know it's not going to last. So you can't even be happy in that moment and revel in the joy of it, because you know it's not going to be there for long. It's going to go away.
And like you said, that's the belief system. And sometimes people come across it very honestly and very innocently. It's something they were taught by someone they trust,
Right.
some learned behavior from someone. And what I often say, and I think you may have mentioned this in your book, looking at the belief systems that no longer work for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what the exercises do in the book. Like, it really helps you examine that, because you don't know where it's starting if you don't know where to start to look.
Right.
And so you have to kind of uncover. I call it unfoldment, because you're looking at something, and it might be on the surface, and then you're going, okay, well, let me clear that out. Ooh, something else bubbles up, because now that's cleared off. And now I can see beneath the surface. And then you clear that, you go a little deeper. Oh, wait, what's that?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you have to address that. So it's a layered approach. It takes patience with yourself.
Because we're all really a work in progress. None of us have perfect lives. Not a single person has a perfect life. It's all about, if you acknowledge that there's something that isn't ideal for you, being open to changing it and making it better. And
Yeah,
identifying that uh, there may be some things that perhaps you don't have complete control over in that moment, but there are many things that you do.
that's right. So many things we don't have control over. And that's why flowing with it is so important. Just ride the wave, you know. Does a surfer fight against the wave and win the tournament? No. He's just gliding along, or she's just gliding along in that tube, right? Not resisting and going with the flow. And truly, naturally, that's what we're meant to do. I was in my yard one day, and I was asking for a message about what I needed to change. And I love nature. Nature is one of my happy places, and I get a lot of clues from nature. So I'm outside and I'm looking in the creek, and there's a snake in the water, and the water's flowing in one way, and the snake is trying to go the opposite direction up the water. And there was a rock that was dry, and he could have gotten up on the rock and gone around the water, but no, he's got to battle against the water. I was like, oh, that's what I need to change, right? Where's the flow? Where is the energy that supports where I want to go? Do I need to modify the goal and how I'm thinking of achieving it? Or actually, it's not even about the how, it's more about the what. Do I need to change the what? Am I looking at this in a way that is for the highest good of myself and whoever else it might impact? Then you can get into the flow of it and revel in it. You
And
know?
and it's not even necessary. You know, sometimes we think, well, then my plan was off, but sometimes we just need to adapt our plan because
Uh,
we change as we change and grow as human beings.
that's right. One of the happiest moments of my life was when I utterly rejected a long held goal. And I said, no, it doesn't work for me anymore. Maybe it would have worked for me 10 years ago. It hasn't happened yet. I'm not interested anymore. I need to let it go. And like the weight is lifted, right? We put so much pressure on ourselves. We don't have to do that. Don't feel obligated, right? It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to get a new piece of information and act on it, or consider it and then modify what you're doing or thinking or acting
You,
in accordance with.
your book is focused a lot around us having many of the components naturally in order to be happy. Speak a little bit about that and why you feel we kind of are readily made for this.
Yeah. When we come in as babies, we are breathing into our stomachs. Watch a baby breathe. They're breathing into the stomach, right? As we get older, as we get stuff piled on top of us, we start breathing up here. Notice it when you start getting stretched. Now you're breathing at the bottom of your neck, and now you're like, we didn't come in that way. And so we have to remember that once again we're creating the life that we choose, and if we're trying to create somebody else's idea of what we should be doing, then we're going to be unhappy.
So
We
you're
just
speaking about diaphragmatic breathing, which many people, you cross over in many really good thought processes, as far as I'm concerned. And I remember the very first time that I studied it was my first Reiki teacher. Uh, he said, "Look at a baby in the crib, and you know, it's all down here." And he would count and teach us, and he told us all. His motivation was that we were all going to have washboard stomachs. So I think he, I think he embellished a little bit for it. I want to talk to you more about somebody who may know they want change. They may say, "Yes, I want change," but they're hesitant to make the changes that they need in order to have happiness. What are some of those things that are roadblocks or obstacles that prevent them from going there?
The number one thing that I hear in my work with clients is, but I don't know how.
Sure.
I don't know how. And so it's not the how. Like everybody focuses on the how. How can I get this accomplished? When will it happen? It's more about the what. we have to talk about what is it that you want, and if you don't know that, we have to get deeper into what that looks like. That's really what the block is, not knowing the what and focusing too much about, well, it, we're in this instant gratification kind of society, and if it doesn't happen tomorrow, then they give up or whatever. Well, half the fun to me is working toward it, working on something. People who say, we talk about my book and whatever, but it's work to write a book, but there's joy in it when it's a labor of love, but you have to persist. Like, it takes a long time from starting writing it to when it gets out to market, and you have to have the you have to maintain your energy around it and
And
not quit halfway through.
remain
You know,
motivated because you don't necessarily have a team of cheerleaders saying, "Go Diane, go."
that's right. That's right. Um, so it, get away from, this is number two, get away from that instant gratification kind of sense, because that's always a source of disappointment. If you set an expectation and it doesn't happen in the way that you envisioned it, you're not going to be happy. Allowing the universe to decide the how releases you and allows you to flow with what it feels like you should be doing. Right?
Abs-
If I get if I'm in a writing mode, I'll keep going. If I get stuck, I get up and I take my dog out for a walk. That's the flow. It, the flow doesn't mean that you're like constantly pushing at the same thing over and over. You're bending, you're winding, you're meandering
And
through.
your pets are often your comic relief, and we talked a little bit
Uh,
off camera, and I'm sure that the viewers could see my dogs walking in and out to make sure that they weren't crying. But